Welcome to the Supply Chain Pioneers podcast, where we highlight industry leaders on the forefront of innovation and technology in planning, procurement, and logistics. Hosted by your supply chain pro to know, Ulf Venne.
Supply Chain Pioneers is powered by Everstream Analytics. Everstream gives you the predictive insights and analytics to make your supply chain faster, smarter, safer, and leaner. Go to everstream.ai to book your demo today. Hello everybody and welcome to a new episode of Supply Chain Pioneers. And I'm here live from Gartner together with my good friend David. Hi David.
Hey, Ulf, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Welcome to America.
Yeah, thank you. So today we want to talk a little bit about the Gartner conference and generally trends in supply chain. And we have the Gartner conference and the Dolphin right behind us. So David, how do you like the Gartner conference?
Great. It's one of the conferences I look forward to most in the year. And I think it's a mixture of great content, particularly from the Gartner analysts, and just quality of attendee is fantastic.
Yeah. And if you think about the themes this year, is there anything that you would say is standing out for you?
So far, I think I've picked up on two things. So one is to compare with last year, where there was a lot of discussion about AI. And this year, it feels as if there's a lot more about the sort of the AI ecosystem, the so what and the how, based on a lot of the lessons, painful lessons people have learned in the last year. And it feels as if the theme officially is autonomy and the autonomous ecosystem and how AI initially can improve your business, but ultimately needs to transform your business.
Yeah, let's see how that is going, right? Because autonomy comes from data being supreme and pristine and being able to be used, which I believe is still a challenge in supply chain, honestly speaking. So looking forward to what Gartner's cooking up on that front. So you've not only been to a Gartner conference, but you're scouring through medias left and right every year, giving your color commentary. So you're a great person to talk about, okay, how is supply chain developing as a theme in the last couple of years, actually? How would you see that development?
Yeah, there's a few ways of looking at that. I think one is to think about, if you reverse out of this idea of an autonomous ecosystem and break it down into its piece parts, you've got the human side, the physical side, and the data side of supply chains that ultimately need to come together around this idea of an autonomous ecosystem. That over the last year or two, progress is being made incrementally on each of these. I was at Modex the other day, so we were looking very much on the physical side of things, and because of what is happening in the world and the regionalization, reshoring of supply chains, challenges with the workforce, the drive to automate anything and everything that can be automated in the warehouse and beyond, I think that's been a very big theme over the last year or two.
We talked about autonomous logistics, Modex, very physical. What do you think about the back and forth in the importance of supply chain, right? If you look at the coverage in the media, definitely with Hormuz has been increased again. Then there was a time where it flowed a little bit off. How can we stay relevant outside of just always these main theme topics that appear?
Yeah, so I think the making sure that supply chain remains relevant, I think there's sort of two audiences. One is the general audience, where COVID was the obvious example of people seeing empty shelves. We're not seeing that with Hormuz, well, not yet anyway, because there are so many tiers in between petrochemicals and the supply chains that petrochemicals feed into. But at this rate, that will happen. But the other audience, and arguably the more important audience, is the board of directors of companies, retailers, manufacturers, distributors. And what we are seeing is not just the spread of Hormuz, but we're seeing extreme weather events. We are seeing geopolitics beyond Strait of Hormuz. So there's no doubt that supply chain and supply chain management is a board issue, just as much as geopolitics now is. The question really is, how does that flow down in an organization? What do chief supply chain officers do about that? What is the dialogue between chief supply chain officers and CEOs, board of directors. And I think I've seen at least 5 sessions this week that are directed exactly at that. And the agenda is being set here as much by chief supply chain officers as it is by Gartner. So just by seeing what is on the docket, I think is a good way of understanding where are the challenges the chief supply chain officers see.
So overall, you see a very positive outlook because you see that it stayed within the board of directors. It's going well. Discussions are happening and everybody's helping a little bit by performing well these days in supply chain management.
Yeah, whether positive is the right word or not, it's definitely a board issue. And as it is obvious now to companies that supply chains are a source of competitive advantage or disadvantage, that's now bled into geopolitics, and conflicts between nations are as much industrial. They always have been, but it's more overt now because they are military. So I don't think that's a positive, but it certainly shines a brighter light on supply chains and the importance of supply chains at the macro as well as the micro level.
Perfect. So we talked a little bit about future themes in supply chain and current themes in supply chain, but what would be your personal future theme? So not Gartner, not anybody else, but what is something you're excited about right now?
So the area that I'm spending a lot of my time on is what I would call AI adjacencies. So it's less so the AI technology itself, and it's more what are the things that a company needs to do and the technologies it needs to have in order to optimize the way in which they're using AI. A lot of it comes back to data, and having the right data in the right place at the right time is one of the keys to AI. And a lot of that comes from cross-platform, cross-functional, cross-company integration. So we're starting to see companies that are essentially integration companies that didn't really exist in the past because people would get integration with whatever software they were buying. And now the need to have a singular architecture around end-to-end integration and the importance of that to get the right data in the right place at the right time, whether it's integration for global trade, whether it's integration for intralogistics and cross-robotics platforms. That's an area that I think is very important. It is underserved, but there are companies who are doing amazing and interesting work there.
Great. Okay. So last but not least, it's not your first Gartner Orlando show. What is something you can do here around the show that's pretty fun?
Well, there's a lot to do. You've got beautiful weather, so get out and go for a walk. Get out of the conference hall, walk around the property. It's a beautiful property. And there's always, once the sun has set, there's always interesting discussions to have with people who are sitting at the bar or they're having a small event. So don't say you heard it here, but there's no such thing as gate crashing. Show up, be nice, have a chat. People will enjoy meeting.
Yeah, perfect. I love that. Thank you so much for doing this, David. Hope to speak to you soon again. This is actually our 3rd year with a 3rd interview of David Shillingford. So we have a yearly David appearance, which is great.
It's my pleasure, Ulf, and I got to end by saying may the 4th be with you.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day. May the 4th be with all of you. And see you for another interview soon. A few finger guns for pew, 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 pew. Bye-bye. Hi, everybody, and welcome back again. Right now, I'm with Austin from Certificial. Austin, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I lead strategy and alliances at Certificial. So my role is to stay ahead of the market and where the industry is really going. And then number 2, to build ecosystems that connect all of that for our customers and partners.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So how long are you in the topic of supply chain management now?
So going in now onto year 7 in overall risk and supply chain vendor onboarding. But yeah, going on 7 years now.
Okay, cool. And what drew you to the space of supply chain?
Yeah. So issue in supply chain is the inefficiencies that happen. You're trying to bring in suppliers and vendors, and it's been a heavily document and manual work-based industry.
Yeah.
And so solving that and helping just not only the digital transformation, but the right information at the right time is the biggest thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. But going maybe deeper on that topic, when you were on the look for a job, what drew you to the topic of supply chain management? Because I don't think everybody knows about that so much.
Yeah. So it wasn't even necessarily something that I think I sought out.
Yeah.
I kind of fell into it.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing, even going back in earlier on in my career, I led operations across multiple different organizations within healthcare. And we had tens of thousands of suppliers. And that's, some companies have hundreds of thousands, millions, but tens of thousands required a large team. I had a team of 40 people whose entire job it was to manage documents.
Yeah.
And that was in a small part of our world in supply chain. It was inefficient. And our only option was throw more people at it, but we couldn't keep up with the risk controls needed or the speed at which we needed to procure and onboard suppliers.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting, actually. So you come from an operational need where you saw it, and then you expanded your portfolio more and more into the supply chain world. Pretty interesting. Okay. And now you're in the solution provider space, 7 years, doing partners with Certifi. Before we talk actually about all of that, maybe you quickly introduce your company for everybody so we know the background.
Yeah. So Certificial, at the core of what we do is enable real-time verification and monitoring for insurance in the commercial side of the world. And then we automate the compliance. So the problem and challenge today for every supply chain and procurement organization is I procure a supplier. I then need to onboard you, and I ask you for a certificate of insurance, a PDF document, and I check the box. Half the time, they're not even comparing that to the contractual requirements, and automating that compliance is one piece. But we want people to go off of documents. Don't check the box and just collect documents. Verify the data, and then track it 365 days a year. So you don't only eliminate the manual burden, you start actually enforcing risk controls, and you gain real-time visibility into that whole process.
Okay. I have a question on that. How many suppliers try to just upload a blank document instead of verification of insurance?
So a blank document, it's less than 1%.
Okay, but that's still a lot, yeah.
But a fake document, we see, depending on the industry, but across the board, about 3%. And 3% doesn't seem very big until you start looking at 100 million of these documents. Percent becomes a very scary number.
Yeah, and insurance is important, right?
Absolutely.
It's like not only a contractual obligation, but it's a obligation for a reason.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And you never want to be caught in a scenario where you have the document and then you have an issue that happens, you go and file a claim, and these are hundreds of thousands of dollars, and oftentimes millions or tens.
Yeah.
And the document didn't represent reality. And now you're stuck and you're on the hook for that. Yeah.
And it's, as I understand it, there are millions of different types of documents you can have because there are so many different insurances, and then everybody has their own variation, right? So it's a pretty complex topic.
Absolutely. Because you not only have the insurance, the certificate, which is part of the picture, you have endorsement documents, policy documents where a lot of the underlying information lives. You don't want to be chasing and pulling all that paper when you could just track it digitally.
Yeah. Okay, so that makes sense. Okay, we understand that. But you made a switch being operational responsible for documentation to then being at a solution provider space.
Yeah.
How did that transition for you personally go?
Yeah, I think it was pretty straightforward in terms of the problem.
Yeah.
Now, the actual underlying solution, it's much like many others in my shoes. I thought, just automate this thing, right? And then getting into the world and realizing, oh my gosh, you can go really deep in just insurance. You can go really deep in just banking and financial details. You can go really deep in news and network monitoring and geographical monitoring. And so I think it was a learning curve to go really deep in the industry, but it was a fast learning curve in terms of, hey, I understand the problem, and how do we all solve this together in the industry?
No, it's good to come with industry expertise and knowing the problem to solve, and then learning about the technicalities of solving problems is an interesting adventure. So now we're at Gartner. It's your first Gartner, right?
It's my first Gartner.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So how do you like the Gartner conference so far?
The Gartner conference the setup is awesome. By the way, I'd say there are a lot of conferences you can go to and get overwhelmed because everybody's there. It's saturated. There's a ton of people. Gartner is a good balance of industry expertise, size. It's big enough that it's worth going to, but small enough that you feel like you can have these conversations. There's space to have those. So it's great. I think like all conferences, though, we're all struggling with just it's one saturated topic, of course. And I think AI has dominated a lot of the scenes here.
Yeah.
And it's been great. It's been a good conference and we're all talking about it. The biggest thing, though, that I've heard that everybody here is talking about is, what do I do tomorrow? I get it. We need good data.
Yeah.
I need AI. I need to be AI forward, but what do I do tomorrow to get better, right?
Yes. And now everybody's talking, I think a big theme this year is automation. So going the next step after AI. But I'm not even sure we can take the first step, which is having the right data to eventually use AI.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. And it still needs a lot of basic technologies like yours because, for example, insurance data, you first have to get the data all straight in one place.
Yes.
Or, yeah, and TMS is still needs to be cleaned
still...
up. And yeah, so there's still a lot of work ahead of us. But how do you see the future of AI and maybe autonomy in the supply chain?
Yeah, I think one thing is really clear is consolidation. Everybody in the supply chain world is trying to figure out how do we, instead of having my Ariba instance, my Oracle instance, they're now looking to consolidate to one area for a single source of truth. And it's a big challenge. I think if there's one challenge everybody needs to solve first is how to make consolidation happen quickly. I've heard 6-year projects. I've heard 12-year projects. I've heard you don't want to be working on this at the pace of AI, right?
Yeah.
Working on this for 6 years, but to focus on that and actually move the needle. And then number 2 is actually understanding the systems. I think a lot of people are talking about AI and implementing it into those systems, but they're even unwinding 40 years of decisions that were made in 4 different ERPs. And how do I consolidate all that? My SCRM, my P2P platform. So honestly, maybe it's a hot take is it's okay to start over, I think, and start from a clean slate and look at what do we want versus what do we need to migrate. And I think that's what everybody here is wrestling with is how do I cut? Oh, we know we need to do it, but how do we do it fast enough? And then how do we actually have confidence in the data?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of change management that needs to happen. I don't think we're out of a job just yet, frankly. So pretty good. Stay in supply chain management. That's the right way to go for sure.
Yeah.
I think this was a short segment. We're going to do another podcast maybe from your side at one point. Anything you still want to mention here? Anything you still want to talk about?
I think the core takeaway, especially just being here at Gartner for everyone, is hone in your craft because a lot of people aren't.
Yeah.
And we're giving away the thinking. So hone the craft, perfect it, so you design the right systems.
Exactly.
Yep.
I agree. As I just said on my Star Wars video this week. Anyway, thank you so much for doing this. This was a great pleasure. And for everybody watching or listening or however you enjoy that podcast, wish you a nice day and bye-bye. Finger guns. Bye-bye. Ciao.
This was Supply Chain Pioneers. Thanks for watching, listening, or however you are enjoying this podcast. You can find Supply Chain Pioneers on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all other major podcast players, as well as on YouTube at Ulf Talks Supply Chain. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. See you next time.